Okay, so this is the next lesson in our discussion on the Reconstruction era. I just want to remind you of our essential questions for these lessons. Did the end of the Civil War and slavery lead to peace based on liberty and justice for all? Why or why not? And were African Americans closer to the American ideals of liberty, justice, and citizenship at the end of the Reconstruction era? So now, last lesson we talked about presidential reconstruction in the executive branch. Now we're going to look at the congressional reconstruction. And again, if you want to refer to section 22.3 in your textbook, you are more than welcome to do so. Now remember, Congress is our legislative branch of government. Congress is the branch of government that writes the laws for the United States of America. And in 1866, Congress passes the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Civil rights is a bolded blue word in your textbook, and you should know that. I'm sure you've heard civil rights many times before, but basically, these are the rights that are given to every citizen of the United States, um, written in the Constitution. Okay, so the Civil Rights Act of 1866 struck down or struck back at the Black Codes. Remember, the Black Codes was part of the Southern backlash to Reconstruction. Okay, and remember those codes set to discriminate against African Americans. This Civil Rights Act declared freed men full citizenship with civil rights. And you've noticed that I've emphasized men, and I'm pretty sure you know why. Additionally, the 14th Amendment was passed. This further protected the rights of African Americans. State governments could not treat some citizens as less equal than others. And again, I want you to look up the definitions of these two bolded blue words in your textbook. But these are two things that Congress was able to pass during Reconstruction. Now, I want us to take a moment and talk about sharecropping. Okay, so I'm setting the scene for you that freedmen wanted land. And when you have land, that means that you can farm it and provide for your family. And farmers wanted labor. Remember, there are many Southern plantation owners, and now with the end of slavery, they did not have free laborers. So they had to find a way of how they were going to continue to run their plantations now that slavery was over. So I'm going to walk you through this vicious cycle, the sharecropper cycle of poverty. By the time sharecroppers had shared their crops and paid their debts, they rarely had any money left. A sharecropper became tied to one plantation, having to work until his debts were paid. So let's look at the first scenario here. Sharecropper receives land and seed. That's awesome, okay? You get that land and seed in exchange for giving the landowner half of the crops that you harvest from that land. Okay. Now, sharecroppers buys food and clothing on credit from the landowner's store. Okay. So what does it mean to buy something on credit? That means an IOU, basically. I don't have the money right now. Well, why don't you have the money right now? Well, because I was a slave, I wasn't paid, and also because I don't have land, I can't farm anything, I can't grow anything so that I could possibly sell it to other people so that I can get money. So the former slaves, these freedmen, have to buy food and clothing on credit. They have to borrow from the landowner's store. Remember that, the fact that they have to borrow from the landowner. So now the freedman has land, he has seed, he has clothes and food to start trying to provide for his family. He plants and harvests the crops. The sharecropper gives the landowner to sell. And the sharecropper gets half of the earnings minus his debt for the year. Okay? So again, the sharecropper has been planting and harvesting the crop for the year. The sharecropper gives the landowner the crops to sell, and the sharecropper does get some earnings. But remember, in step 2, the sharecropper had to pay for food and clothing on credit. Okay? When settling up, the landowner says that the sharecropper owes more than he has earned. So basically, the landowner is saying, listen, you borrowed too much money, and your crop for this year, does not cover the amount of money that you borrowed from me. So, to pay the debt, the sharecropper promises the landowner a greater share of next year's crop. But then we start that cycle all over again. The sharecropper needs land and seed in order to be able to start next year's crop. And the sharecropper needs more food and clothing, and the cycle continues. So, in a way, this was slavery all over again. Okay. All right. Let's focus on voting in Congress by 1867. These are the people in the political parties that they joined by 1867. And mind you, we're getting ready for an election. So in the Republican Party, the people who joined that political party and considered themselves Republicans were free African American men, poor white farmers, and Northerners. And the people who belonged to the Democratic Party were white plantation owners. Now, additionally, the 15th Amendment was passed and added to our Constitution. It said that states can't deny anyone or any man the right to vote because of race or color or because the person was once a slave. Now, this, in my opinion, is the highlight of the Reconstruction era. 1/5 of the South's congressional members were African American. This was extremely important and significant. 20 were in the House of Representatives and 2 were in the Senate. Why is this so important? Well, remember, Congress is the lawmaking body or the lawmaking branch of the United States of America. So when you have 1/5 of the lawmaking branch of America consist of African Americans, that means that they have a voice and opinions in the laws that were written for all of the United States. Now, here's a picture that you will find in your textbook, and I suggest you take a closer look at this picture. Something very different from some of the other earlier paintings that may have happened, that may have been painted before the Civil War, before Reconstruction. Okay, here we have a mixture of men in Congress working together to pass laws. And here is a picture of the first senators and representatives who were voted in during the Reconstruction era. So, we're at the end of this lesson. Now, did the end of the Civil War and slavery lead to peace based on liberty and justice for all? Why or why not? And were African Americans closer to American ideals, liberty, justice, and citizenship at the end of the Reconstruction era?